Hey guys, Chris Clothier here with another episode of the Grind Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today for an awesome Friday. I hope you're planning and getting ready for a fantastic weekend. I know that I'm planning to have a lot of fun with today's podcast because this is another one of those sessions where the awesome team behind me and the awesome team that makes this podcast so good, the real talent of the podcast, because it's not me. It's definitely behind the camera. They want to do what is it called? Like a surprise me thing where you want me to raw react. I get to read something and have a raw reaction to it. But today is also very specific. We are raw reacting to my most recent pet peeve, the thing that is really driving me crazy right now about the real estate investing world. And that is, the number of writers, media companies, headline seekers, whatever we want to call it, people that are writing stories, coming up with headlines that are all about, the doom and gloom. Because I guess, if it bleeds, it leads, if it, whatever it smells, it sells. What are I'm not sure what all those are, but I know those are probably two of them. That if it's bad news, people are drawn to it. And then you dig into the data, you dig into the actual article itself sometimes, and they're actually presenting a story that's very positive. So right now there is just a ton of negativity around the real estate market. And are there things that, I'm going to call them challenges and headwinds? Of course there are. Real estate is not static. If we've learned nothing over the last 2 decades that we've been in business, it's that the real estate market changes. And it's almost in constant flux. It's in constant change. There's positives and negatives all the time in the current real estate market. And at the same time, here we are as a company, if you don't know, I will tell you now that we operate in, I think it's 12 different cities today. We count North Alabama as 3 different markets because we've got Huntsville, Birmingham, and Tuscaloosa, all, in North Alabama, but different markets. But we're also in Memphis. Today, we operate in West Memphis, which is actually in Arkansas. We operate in North Mississippi. It feels like it's the Memphis market, but these are 3 different markets all in one area. We also are in St. Louis. We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. A lot of varied markets, and each of them can be reacting differently at the exact same time. Right now, we are not doing as much volume up in St. Louis as we are, say, in Memphis. These are 2 completely different markets, but they're acting very differently right now, and so we are adjusting accordingly. And it's not like St. Louis is bad. I don't mean it like that. It's just operating differently right now than Memphis, and we're taking advantage of what we see as a very good market in Memphis. If you read the headlines in the news about so many different, cities, but the ones that drive me the nuts the most are the headlines in the news that are about the national real estate market. The only market that doesn't actually exist. There is no national real estate market. If you want to take a city like Memphis and say the Memphis real estate market, even that is not necessarily accurate because Memphis has 4 to 6 different little submarkets within it. Suburbs and city, suburbs and suburbs, outlying areas. Again, like we just talked a second ago, going into North Mississippi and West Memphis. The Memphis market itself, it's hard to tell a story about the Memphis market in total without really diving down and digging into the individual markets. So as we were talking, Isabella, who many of you have never met, one day I will get her to come in front of the camera. She will be on this podcast with me. Right, Isabella? She said no, just so everybody's clear. But we will one day, perhaps. But Isabella, she comes up with these things. She says, hey, Chris, I'm going to give you these articles. I want you to read the headlines. I want you to read the article and have a raw react to it. Tell us what you think about it. What's good, what's bad, what's accurate, what's wrong. And then we'll kind of go from there. And because you guys, as our audience, y'all always like those. You always have had massive response to those types of podcasts. So today I want massive response. Like the podcast. If you haven't already subscribed, I don't know why you haven't yet. Perhaps this is your first one. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the podcast. Give us a comment back and forth. I'm happy to reply. I get a lot of emails on a weekly basis after the podcast, so feel free to send me an email if you want to talk kind of offline. Happy to do it. Isabella, you ready? All right, so you've got them loaded up on my computer, and all I got to do is hit the button, and they're going to pop up on my screen, and just like that. She's highly confident. Me, not so much. All right, here we go. So, and it popped up right there on my screen. The first one is, should I sell my house before Should I sell my house before prices really crash or wait for the next big real estate boom? I'm going to have to get my glasses on to read the rest of this. So, right off the bat, we're coming up. She's put something in front of me that talks all about the housing crash. Well, I can promise you one thing before I go even further, even I get into this thing, that there is not going to be a real estate crash. In fact, it's not even in this article, I can promise you, but I was reading today that a majority of economists on the 18th of August feel like and now believe there will be a very soft landing for the housing market, meaning that there will be adjustments. Some markets are still going up. Others are going to come down, but it'll be a nice soft landing, meaning that the rise in interest rates and the slowdown in new housing inventory will be just enough to bring this super overheated hot real estate market back to a regular market. And we're going to read a lot of stuff about the crash and how real estate is dropping fast, all this kind of stuff. And the reality is we're just turning back to normal. We're just going back to a normal market. So this thing talks about warning signs for sellers. This is crazy. All right, so this is somebody who's writing an article and he wants to take both sides. He creates a headline that's fictitious. Should I sell my house before prices really crash or wait for the next big boom? Well, down in the article, in his H1 tags, his headers, he talks about warning signs for sellers. So the hard to ignore recent warning signs for sellers is that buyers are becoming more pessimistic. Consumers now feel like the conditions are not as good as they were 6 months ago. And the number of people who thought it was a good time to sell has fallen from where it was 6 months ago. I can't cuss on this podcast, but I want to say no. I mean, really? What told you that? The fact that we were having in this housing market, we were having multiple offers above list, houses selling 10 to 20% above their list price. And today we have multiple offers at list price, and they're actually wanting to get a house inspected before they close. That's a normal buying market. That's what's happening here today. And yet we have writers who are telling about the pessimism of owners and how people just don't feel like it's as good a time to sell. And that's a warning sign for the seller. It's not a warning sign. It means that you can no longer today put any old piece of junk on the market and expect to make 30% over what you listed it for. That's what it is. That's what's happening today in the market. His next one is, still, it's a good time to sell. And then his next headline is, but it's also a good time to wait. This is the stuff that drives me bananas about these articles. It's all about the headline and get somebody in. And then I'm going to tell you all different sides of the story, meaning that this is a normal real estate market. For some investors, for some sellers, it's the right time to wait. It's the right time to wait and see what's going to happen for you in your particular situation. And for the guy next to you, it's the right time to go. It's the right time to sell. It's the right time to buy, whatever it ends up being. That you need to be moving one way or the other, but you have to be kind of knowing what's going on within the market. This guy wants to give you each side of the story, but now this writer, he crushes the end. I mean, his ending is like amazing. Last piece of advice, get good advice. Hire a real estate agent. And as I go through the article, should I be surprised that this is nothing but an advertisement for real estate agents? Because it says nothing of real pertinence. It's just all this both sides of the story all the way around, partly to confuse you and to end with the end of the best compass for what your city or neighborhood will demand or cost is an agent. That is, all right, that drives me crazy. Thanks for starting me off with an advertisement article, Isabella. That was amazing. Just put me off in a fantastic mood right off the bat. Okay, so my second one. Let's see if I can get this article to move. Yeah, here we go. All right, so the second one. Why you shouldn't buy a house. Good. Okay, fine. Whatever you want to start off with, however you want to go. So why you shouldn't buy a house today. Here's the best reasons not to buy one. You don't have a down payment. I don't even know that is a reason not to buy a house. Isn't that like something that automatically eliminates you? Forget about buying a house. You can't buy a house. Of course you shouldn't. You can't. You literally can't. You have bad credit or too much debt. Again, aren't these eliminating factors? These aren't reasons not to buy a house. These are reasons why you can't buy a house today. These are things that you should be working on. A key takeaway. Renting could possibly be 50% cheaper. I don't know that I'm going to make it through this whole article. This is, okay, I got to move on down because that is just, that's what this whole article is about. You have no down payment, you shouldn't buy a house. You have poor credit, you shouldn't buy a house. You have high debt, you shouldn't buy a house. You have no job. Are you kidding me? You don't have a job, so perhaps you should not buy a house right now. All right, I'm mad at you. Did you read these before you sent these to me? You tend to move every year. That's a pretty, wait, but it gets better. It gets better. You're in an unstable relationship. What in the world is this that I'm reading? Is this like oh my gosh, this is horrible. You like to travel. Don't buy a house. Okay. You're in a roll and go lifestyle is what this says. Not a lock and go lifestyle. Okay. Everyone else is doing it, so you shouldn't. What in the world? Who wrote this? This is like my high school son wrote this article. Everyone else is doing it because buyers often end up in multiple offer situations in a seller's market. You should not move forward. Oh my word. You know who this one was brought to you by? You sent me another advertisement article. I am so mad at you right now. This is from a mortgage lending company. Get pre-qualified. Let us pull your credit. We'll help you buy your home. I'm so mad at you right now, Isabella. So I think that the moral so far of the first two articles is be careful what you read and where you get your news, because you can get some really you might be thinking you're reading something about the housing market and trying to educate yourself and become more aware, which is awesome, but you're reading advertisements from people that are trying to get your business rather than actually help you or give you anything. I mean, that's a great one. Okay. This is, I've never heard of this site before, but it looks like it's a blogger. And he's a pretty well-followed blogger. Heck, he's got over 300 comments. That's more comments than I get, isn't it? She said yes. Okay. All right. Thanks for building me up, Isabella. All right. So here we go. Housing bubble getting ready to pop. Traffic of prospective buyers of new houses plunges as home builders cut prices and sentiment dives. Man, he used all of the big words to try and get lots of traffic in, and it worked. He got, almost 300 comments. But let's dig into this to see what it really says. All right. Y'all ready? So right off the bat, he goes right into the home builder thing. Says home builders have struggled for well over a year with supply and labor shortages. Ridiculous spiking costs. Fair enough. He's right. Mortgage rates went through the roof. Got it. He says unsold inventories have surged to levels not seen since 2008. I'm not sure I'm buying that, but he's linking, so I'm gonna let that one go here for a second because I want to keep reading. And he says that home builder stocks are down 24 to 40%. Right off the bat, I can tell you this. Who cares? Get that out of here. Home builder stock means absolutely nothing for the real housing market. That's some other metric that we're not in unless you own housing stocks, and those don't even pay attention to that. So the National Association of Home Builders says their sentiment, the sentiment of their members, is down 7 months in a row. So far this year, they are just not feeling highly confident about building houses. But here's what's crazy, all right? So it's down 7 months in a row. All right, can I get this? Here we go. Come on. All right, here we go. So it's down 7 months in a row, but it's at the highest level it's been. It's back at levels that were seen in 2019. It's off of its peaks of 2021. It's well above sentiment of 2020, and it's above 13, 14, 15, 16. Right about 16 is when it's right back into that similar level. When home builders were building, they were under building, but they were building to demand and a little bit over it. It was good, but they were still a little bit below. So to say that home building, the key to this is that, hey, it's down 7 months in a row. It's all bad. Buyers or home builders they're all bad. It's all bad. It's all bad. And here it is. It's better than it was. It's right back to the same level it was in 2019. That can't be all bad if you ask me. It's not 2008 levels and 2009 levels. In fact, it's about 4 times. They're 4 times more confident than they were back then. It says here that 13% of all home builders in the country have cut prices. The headline is builders slashing prices. The data is 13%. The inverse of that means 87% of the builders out there that responded, they're not cutting prices. So how do we come up with a headline that says builders are slashing prices? That's not true. Home builders are saying that they believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. I understand where they're coming from on that. They believe that we're not quite through this yet. If it gets a little bit worse, we're still better than we've been in, we're at the median to high point of the last 10 years. If it gets way worse, we're way further down. Now, I'm trying to, as I'm reading through this, I'm trying to see if this is sponsored by anybody. He has some ads in here. They're home builder ads, of course. So I think this falls right in line with the other thing. I'm going to write an article. I'm going to put some data in here. It's not necessarily wrong, but I'm going to interpret the data in the worst way possible to tell the story that things are going bad. Here's what I know. This is what I know is that many home builders that I am familiar with, they are not building spec homes right now, but they are continuing to build, and they're building a lot of homes for buyers on demand and on order. They are filling out neighborhoods where they have high demand and high order rates in those neighborhoods. What are they backing up from? They're backing up from the spec home buildings. They're backing up from building the $1 million spec house because 3 years ago, 1 year ago, that was an easy sell. They are building more homes that are more the traditional family home. We're talking about the 1,800 to 2,500 square foot house. And these are builders I'm talking to. But I'm not giving you a story or a headline that says builder sentiment's happy. Everybody's, overjoyed because the people I talk to are still building. No, I get where this is coming from, but it's a pretty negative slant on something that in the end doesn't really lend itself to being all that negative. I would read that guy again, though. I would read him again, Isabel. If you want to share more articles from him, I would do that. Okay, cool. Just keep me reading good stuff like him. I mean, that wasn't too bad. All right, here's a good one. Never heard of this publication either. Interesting. The headline is, will the weakening housing market lead to a 2008 style crash? And you've got this image with this red arrow going all the way down, top right or top left corner, all the way down to the bottom right corner, as if housing is falling. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that really makes me mad. Not that it shouldn't make me mad. Really mad? Do I spend all day and night thinking about it? No, but this is how dumb this is. You just heard I read the article. I just read the headline. He's talking about, I'm not even sure if this is a he. The author is saying, will the weakening housing market lead to a 2008 style crash? Question mark. Big image of the arrow going down. Everything's bad. The very first bold headline. The housing market still looks good. This is so stupid. I get tired of this kind of stuff. This is what drives me nuts. So if you're a headline reader and you're just going off headlines, you're thinking that the housing market is really bad. I need to stay away from it. I'm losing equity in my home. Am I going to lose my job now? Are we going to go back to 2008? What's going to happen? It's all fear, panic. And then the very first thing we say is the housing market still looks good. Because here's the thing, home values are up nearly 40% in most parts of the country. In most parts of the country, we are at 100% plus of the peak price value. And most peak pricing values were reached in 2006 and 2007. Today, we are at peak price plus to the highest it's ever been. Anyone who has bought in the last 36 months is still up in value. And absolutely no one has lost a dollar if they haven't sold. So fortunes are lost and housing crashes occur when people are forced to sell what they have at below the value that they owe. Well, because of better financing, because of tighter financing restrictions put in place after the 2008 crash, today, investors, owners, everyone out there have a higher percentage of equity in their home than at any point in the history of our country. Now, a lot of that has to do with value going up, of course. But it also means that people haven't sucked all that value out. It means people haven't gone in and they're not buying above value. And they still haven't been buying above value. So the likely outcome for real estate market is what she writes here, is that the slowdown could lead to a drop in pricing. But there's still buyers with high demand, and it's definitely moving to a more buyer-friendly housing market. You must be kidding. That's the article behind the headline of will the housing market lead to a 2008 style crash? I'm thinking the answer is no, and I think she gives us that answer, but the headline definitely, if we don't read the article, tells us that it is. I don't like that. I'm not a big fan of that kind of article. All right, I actually have two more, and this is a really good one. So again, another. This is a magazine. I don't read very often, but I have read it before. So this is nuts. All right, so what they're writing about is that in June, so they're looking back 60 days, the median existing home price reached another new peak. It was 13.4% higher year over year. We have had 23 straight months of double-digit price gains year over year, which means we are greater than 20% over the price from 2 years ago, and it's the longest such run since the 1970s. So I find it interesting that they're looking at this as being a gloomy data point. For those that own houses, you're up in value. For those that have invested, you're up in value. For renters, yeah, this is not great news. But we know today, as far as housing is concerned, that roughly 32 to 34% of the citizens in the country, they actually rent their housing. So rents are up. So 32% of the population is absolutely having an affordability issue. 60% of the population is sitting in a position right now where their house is worth more than it was 1 year ago. Now I'm going through, they're listing a whole bunch of different articles. They're going back to they cite Bloomberg multiple times. They're talking about the supply of homes. This is great right here. Okay. The supply of homes across the U.S. grew at a record rate last month. So now they're talking about July. The supply of homes, hear me out on this. The supply of homes for sale across the U.S. grew at a record rate last month. Another sign that the housing market is cooling. However, inventories are well below pre-COVID levels, meaning that there's no value that's been lost. Just because housing supply is going up, we're still well below where we were 3 years ago before COVID even hit. It says the number of active listings are up 31%, which is a record increase for the third straight month. Yet they are below where they were just 3 years ago. So just because you're seeing more houses on the market, there's still fewer houses, and houses remain on the market for fewer days than in a normal period of activity. And we'll look back pre-COVID and say that's a normal period of activity. So when we read these articles, when we read these headlines, we need to make sure that we fully understand the whole housing picture here. We can go read a lot of different headlines, and we can find anything that, any story we want to find. We can find the doom, the gloom, the sky is falling type of scenario, or we can find the glass is half full, things are moving in the right direction. And I am very optimistic about the market type of story, if that's what we look for. Whatever we want to tell ourselves, we can find confirmation of it. For me, I choose to read both. And clearly today, Isabella wanted me to get some type of reaction out of some of these crazy articles because she knows how I am. She knows that I am all in on being well educated and educating ourselves, that we know what's happening in the market. I'm aware that what's happening in Charlotte, North Carolina does not affect me in Memphis, Tennessee. What's happening in New York City and San Francisco, where affordability is at an all-time low, and it's just, the whole idea that I can own a house, much less an investment property, is, it's really for the select few, has nothing to do with the opportunities in the Midwest, from San Antonio all the way across to Birmingham, like where we are. And what's happening, for that matter, in San Antonio does not affect Birmingham. Every single market is slightly different. And when you go into the market, if you are choosing to buy in the most challenged areas of a city, the areas with the lowest demand for rent, the lowest demand for home ownership, because they are truly challenged in all areas, then you're going to struggle. That is going to be a hard road to hoe as an investor, because you're choosing to go into an area of any major metropolitan area, any city, and the one that is the most challenged usually tends to be the one that is the least expensive. And that area is going to be different than an area of homes near the median value for a metroplex, because those are the homes that will be in the highest demand, both from home ownership because they are affordable, and from the rental side because they should be nicer and affordable. And you'll have more demand there than you will the most expensive part of a market, where housing becomes unaffordable and renting becomes unaffordable. So as an investor, don't read the headline and take away from it that its story of everything's great or everything's bad is necessarily the whole truth. Read it all. Read into the details. Don't forget, a lot of people today are advertising. A lot of people today are just shopping for eyeballs. These articles, these headlines, they're just designed to get people to read, to share, to get more social media account, whatever it ends up being. Whereas in reality, sometimes the fine print down in the actual story, if it's included, you'll find somebody include a headline like, the sky is falling. And then the very first, H1 tag they've got, the very first headline they've got in the actual article is, well, it fell a little bit, but it's really not falling all the way. Everything's good. It's better than it was 3 years ago, but it's down from where it was on its peak. If that's the reality for us as investors, then we need to be moving. We need to be going, because it means we're still in a historically good housing market. And as we know, all things, I've kind of done this before with everybody, things will go, housing markets are cyclical. They will go up, they will come down. They tend to go up more, then they come down. So it goes up, comes down a little, goes up again. As I just pointed out, it reaches above its previous high point. That's the thing to keep in mind. If you are investing in long-term buy and hold real estate, it doesn't matter when you necessarily buy. It matters how long you're planning to hold. Okay? There's always opportunity. You just got to be smart enough to grab it. Guys, that's it for me this week. You have no more articles for me to review, right? Okay, good. So I have looked at a few headlines. It's been fun. I enjoy it. She knows it drives me crazy when I read crazy advice or crazy talk, and every once in a while that's, we do these headline surprises, instant takes, or hot takes, whatever you want to call it. Until we get a chance to come back together again, guys, We're getting close to the end of August. We're approaching the fourth quarter. Hopefully everybody is making their plans, lining up their taxes, lining up their whatever their plans are for the rest of the year to grab whatever they can for their portfolio and lock it in. Until we get a chance to meet again, commit to the grind, and I will see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys.